In this video, I'd like to look at how to use an alias to sort of write another version, another thing that you can input to achieve a command. So I go back and forth. This virtual machine here is Linux, is Ubuntu, but I'm on a Windows machine. And so here is my command prompt, my Windows terminal. And I use a dir to see what's there. And I have some little, I happen to be in download. So if I want to see, I have some little text file. If I want to see what's in there, in Linux, I would say cat. And that doesn't work. But what I do in Windows is say type. And then that file just happens to have just this one URL that I have something I wanted to read. Okay, so that is a command that works. Type is a command that works in Windows, but cat is the version, so I don't have the same file. I have a different file, but over here I have a file, a sonnet. Let me do ls. And you could do this, they've already done it typically for you for dir. So dir is usually a Windows command, but Linux has been trained to sort of recognize it. But ls is the sort of more common, and this also gives you some color coding, so it's a little more useful. But there's a file here, sonnet, and in here I would say cat. And it spits out the contents of the file. It happens to be a Shakespeare sonnet, but type would not work. So if I want to make my Linux system so then it recognizes the type command that I would use in Windows, I would use an alias to do that. So that's what I want to show you. So I have down here my little hint to myself. So if I now put in the command line that by type I mean cat, so then after I do that, then if I say type, it now it pops out the sonnet. So it now recognizes. But if I were to close this window, and this is I just made this user, I just made up a user, Peter, who's got administrative privileges, but otherwise it's this fresh user that I haven't done anything special to. So what I'm doing is sort of works for like a fresh user. Okay, so I ran that command alias, but now I'm going to close this terminal and then open the terminal back up. So here's my Peter terminal. I'm still in the right place with sonnets. I am going to try to type. And a second ago, this worked. And now it fails again because the alias was only good for the session. So now I want to show you how to do an alias, to remember an alias. Okay. So we do that by editing a file, a hidden file called bashrc, and it happens, there are a number of them. I'm just going to do it for this user. I'm going to pretend that this user, Peter, goes back and forth between Windows and Linux all the time, so wants an alias for the type command. Okay, so I'm going to do, so there is one of these .bashrcs in Peter's home. But here I'm looking at Peter's home and you don't see it because it's a hidden file. Hot files that begin with a dot are typically hidden. So there are two ways for us to see it. One here, graphically, you can sort of go into this little hamburger icon, and there's a checkbox here for show hidden files, and there's the bashr. And if we were doing command line stuff, we could say ls -a is to show everything. And then it's showing the bashrc file. So now that we see it's there, then let's edit it. So here I could just say edit with, open with the text editor, and it's bringing it up in my text editor. And, or on the command line, I could say gedit dot bashrc, and that would open the text editor. So just two ways of opening the text editor. So this sort of hidden file has a bunch of code that gets run, and somewhere in here there are some aliases. So these are some aliases within an if, but here's some more aliases. So just for the purposes of putting aliases with aliases, I'm going to put it here in the 90s. And here is the alias type equals cat. So if I use the type command, it will know that I want a cat. And you can see in these options that are above that you can include options. I'm just doing this, I'm just doing a cat, type is cat, straightforward, but you could include, if the command that you're aliasing has options, you can include some options. Okay, so let's save that. That's saved. Close without saving, no, save. Oh, I have that other, I don't need that, cancel. Okay, that was just my little hint to myself, but I did manage to close the bashrc. And let's go back and see if it now understands type. It doesn't understand type, but let me close the terminal and open it again. Now I've closed and opened the terminal, and now I'm going to try to type sonnet.txt, and it's understood. And I will close it again and open it again. It should always now remember it for, at least for Peter. Type sonnet.txt. Okay, so we have alias the command. We can do it for a session, or we can do it more permanently. We did it because we chose the bashrc again, which is a hidden file. But since we did it for in Peter's home, I think it only applies to Peter. So that's what I wanted to show you, just some aliasing of a command, no scripts this time, just a simple little game with a command for people who jump back and forth between Windows and Linux.